Have you ever walked into a room full of people, like maybe it's a high-stakes networking event or a crowded holiday party,
Right.
or even just a really busy open-plan office?
Oh, yeah. The classic anxiety-inducing scenarios.
Right. And you walk in and you just get this overwhelming, almost primal urge to somehow announce, well, here I am.
Oh, definitely. Like, you need to prove you belong there.
Exactly. You know the feeling. You walk in, you straighten your jacket, you put on your best face, and you just desperately want to project this aura of importance.
Yeah, you're hoping people will just, like, naturally recognize your value and gravitate toward you.
But I want you to contrast that with a completely different approach. Imagine walking into that exact same room, finding someone's eyes in the crowd, and warmly thinking to yourself, oh, there you are.
I love that. That shift, I mean, moving from here I am to there you are, that is the hidden architecture of pretty much every successful relationship you will ever
It's
have.
like a huge shift in perspective.
Yeah. Oh, massive. Because you are transitioning from a really self-centered, ego-driven approach to a deeply empathetic, outward-facing one. And the difference in how people will organically respond to you based entirely on which of those two mindsets you adopt before you even cross the threshold is just staggering.
Which is exactly what we are unpacking today. We're going on a really fascinating deep dive into the absolute granular mechanics of human connection.
We really are.
We're looking at a highly specific, actionable framework for understanding ourselves and decoding the people around us. And our roadmap today is drawn primarily from Leah Lowndes' fantastic book, How to Talk to Anyone, 92 Little Tricks for Big Success in Relationships.
And we're also weaving in some incredibly sharp synthesized notes on the text from Derek Sivers, which are so good.
They really are. And what makes this particular exploration so compelling is the lens we're using today.
Right, because right in our source material, there is this profound underlying philosophy. It's the idea that understanding the intricacies of human behavior and mastering these communication techniques actually helps us fulfill a much higher calling.
Yeah, it's the command to love others as ourselves.
Exactly. When we strip away the cynical idea of networking as just a transaction where I give you a business card so you can give me a job, it becomes about profound human validation.
Right. We're not just talking about schmoozing or manipulating people to get what we want.
No, not at all.
We are looking at the science of how to make people feel deeply authentically seen. So, to set the stage for all of this, think about the concept of the social ladder
Yeah.
or the corporate ladder. We use that visual all the time, right?
Oh, constantly. She's climbing the corporate ladder.
But our source text points out a really critical flaw in how we imagine that. Nobody gets to the top alone.
Never.
You don't just climb a physical ladder by pulling yourself up in a vacuum, defying gravity through sheer willpower and talent.
No. You are boosted. You are lifted, rung by rung, by the hundreds, maybe thousands of people whose hearts and minds you have captured along the way.
Yeah.
Every single interaction you have with a receptionist, a CEO, a cab driver, a client, that is a rung on that ladder.
And that means your success, however you want to define it, is entirely interdependent on the emotional resonance you create with the people around you.
You absolutely cannot bypass the human element.
Right. But before you can climb that ladder, before you can capture anyone's heart or mind, you have to actually step into the room. You have to initiate the interaction,
The scary part.
the terrifying part. So let's start right there at the absolute beginning. Let's look at the very first 10 seconds of any interaction.
The text calls this the instant mental snapshot.
And the data here is wild. According to the research cited in our sources, 80% of a first impression is based entirely on how you look and how you move.
Wait, 80%?
80%. Before you have even formed a single syllable, the other person's brain has already processed an enormous amount of data about you.
I mean, if you think about it from an evolutionary psychology perspective, it makes perfect sense. We are highly visual, instinctual creatures.
Right.
For hundreds of thousands of years, our survival depended on our ability to instantly assess threats and opportunities from a distance. Is that person approaching me a friend or a foe?
Are they confident or terrified?
Exactly. We are biologically wired to take that instantaneous snapshot. So when someone looks at you today, their brain is doing the exact same ancient math.
Which is wild to think about.
It really is. And
Yeah.
the text gives us the foundational elements to make sure that snapshot works in our favor, right? Great posture, a heads-up look, a confident smile, and a direct gaze.
Okay, let's focus on that smile for a moment, because this is where the text introduces a technique that kind of blew my mind. It's called the flooding smile.
Oh, this one is so counterintuitive.
Right. I always thought the rule was Make eye contact and immediately flash a huge blinding smile to show how friendly you are,
Yeah.
like instantly.
Yeah, that's what you're all taught.
But the advice here is actually the exact opposite. Do not flash an immediate smile.
It completely goes against conventional wisdom. We are taught to smile constantly to be liked. But I want you to really think about the psychology of an immediate, rapid-fire smile.
Okay.
It feels automatic. It feels like a reflex. If you walk into a store and the greeter flashes a smile the millisecond the door chimes, you know that smile wasn't for you.
Oh, right. It was for whoever happened to trigger the sensor.
Exactly. It lacks personalization. It creates a subtle sense of distrust.
It's like a generic welcome mat. It's polite, sure, but it doesn't mean anything special to the person wiping their shoes on it.
That's a perfect analogy.
I used to work with a guy who had the exact smile. You'd walk up to his desk, and his mouth would just instantly snap into a grin, but his eyes were completely dead.
The dead eyes.
Yes, it always made me feel like I was interrupting a robot.
Precisely. The flooding smile technique completely rewires that dynamic. It requires a subtle, deliberate pause.
So what does that look like?
Well, when you make eye contact with someone, you look at their face for a split second. You visually soak in their persona, you take them in,
Okay.
and then you let a big, warm, responsive smile flood over your face and overflow into your eyes. It is supposed to engulf the recipient like a warm wave.
So if I'm the listener, what is that split-second delay actually doing to my brain?
It is creating a narrative of cause and effect in your subconscious. By pausing, the person smiling is telegraphing a very specific message. I am looking at you, I am registering who you are, and my resulting happiness is uniquely and entirely because of you.
Oh, wow. So it's not just a reflex.
Right. That split-second delay convinces your brain that the smile is absolutely genuine and reserved exclusively for you. It gives the smile massive emotional credibility.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
It shifts the smile from a generic broadcasted radio signal to a highly targeted, laser-focused embrace.
Exactly.
Now, alongside the smile, the text places a massive emphasis on the eyes. There are two specific techniques here: sticky eyes and epoxy eyes. Let's start with sticky eyes.
Sticky eyes is a phenomenal visualization technique. You pretend that your eyes are literally glued to your conversation partner's eyes with warm, sticky taffy.
Taffy, yeah.
Taffy. The rule is that you do not break eye contact even after they have finished speaking. And when you finally must look away to break the gaze, maybe someone else calls your name, or you need to look at a menu, you do it ever so slowly.
Like you're actually stretching it.
Right, reluctantly, as if you were stretching that gooey string of taffy until it finally gently snaps.
It's about demonstrating intense, unwavering focus. And the text actually references a fascinating case study to back this up.
Oh, the blink counting one.
Yes. They had subjects converse with individuals who were secretly instructed to simply count the subject's blinks during the conversation.
Which is a brilliant mechanical way to force unbroken eye contact. I mean, if I am counting your blinks, I cannot look away from your eyes.
Exactly. And the subjects obviously had no idea their blinks were being counted. But afterward, when researchers asked the subjects how they felt about the people they were talking to, they reported feeling significantly higher levels of respect and fondness for the blink counters than for the control group.
Because to the recipient, that level of uninterrupted attention feels like profound respect.
Especially today.
Right. In a world where everyone is constantly glancing at their phones or looking over your shoulder to see who else is in the room, undivided visual attention is incredibly rare.
It really is.
It bypasses the logical brain and speaks directly to our primal need for validation. It says, you are the most important thing in my environment right now.
Okay, so sticky eyes makes total sense to me when you're talking to someone directly. It's focused, it's respectful, but then the text introduces the next level. Epoxy eyes.
Ah, epoxy eyes.
And I have to push back on this one because it honestly sounds like a recipe for a restraining order.
Huh. Okay, let's hear the critique.
The text says that with epoxy eyes, you watch your target person even when someone else is talking.
Right.
So imagine we are at a dinner party. There are three of us. Person A, let's call him John, is telling a story. I want to impress you, person B.
Okay, tracking.
The technique says I should keep my eyes fixed entirely on you, observing your reactions to the story, instead of looking at John, who is actually speaking.
Yep, that's what it says.
But if I'm John, I'm going to think you're incredibly rude for not looking at me while I talk. And if I'm you, I'm going to feel deeply uncomfortable that you are just unblinkingly staring at me while someone else is speaking. Doesn't that seem a bit brazen? Or maybe even a little intense or socially awkward?
It is a totally valid concern, and to be fair to the text, it explicitly describes epoxy eyes as a brazen technique that packs a powerful punch.
Okay, at least it warns you.
Right. This is not a casual tool for low-stakes interactions at the grocery store. But if we connect this to the deeper psychology of human ego, it works precisely because it is so intense and slightly transgressive.
How?
By maintaining your focus on the listener, your target, rather than the active speaker, you are telegraphing an undeniable message. I cannot take my eyes off you. I am far more interested in your reactions to the world than in the world itself.
So you're essentially saying, John's story is fine, but the most fascinating thing happening in this room right now isn't the story, it's how you are processing the story.
Exactly. It aggressively elevates their status in that moment. It makes the target feel intensely interesting.
Okay, I see that.
Now, you obviously have to use emotional intelligence here. You don't stare at them with a deadpan serial killer expression.
Intense staring contests.
Right. You look at them with warmth, sharing micro expressions like a shared smile at a funny part of the story, a raised eyebrow. You are creating a private, nonverbal connection between the two of you, even while a third person holds the floor.
Wow. Okay, I can see how that would make someone feel like the center of the universe if executed correctly.
Yeah.
So we have the smile, we have the eyes. Let's talk about the rest of the body. The text introduces a concept called the big baby pivot.
This is one of my favorites, and it is universally applicable.
The rule is that the instant you are introduced to someone new, you should give them a 100% total body turn.
Just drop everything.
Yeah, you give them your undivided attention, the flooding smile, the sticky eyes, and you pivot your entire physical being toward them, just as you would if a beaming, toothless infant crawled up to your feet.
The analogy of the infant is so deliberate and perfect here. Think about what happens when a baby does something adorable in a room.
Everyone stops.
Exactly. We don't just casually glance over our shoulder while keeping our body pointed at the TV. We drop what we're doing. We turn our shoulders, our hips, our feet. We square up, and we give that baby absolute centered focus.
So doing that to an adult.
When you apply that physical mechanic to an adult, pivoting 100% towards them, it silently shouts, "I think you are very, very special." It signals total psychological and physical commitment to the interaction.
It's the physical manifestation of, there you are. It's proving, with your posture, that nothing else in the room matters right now. But here is a very real problem. What if you are just inherently nervous around strangers?
Sure.
I know plenty of brilliant people whose body language completely betrays them because they suffer from social anxiety. They want to do the big baby pivot and the flooding smile, but they just freeze up.
It's so common. But the text actually has a fascinating mental hack for this called "Hello, Old Friend."
Oh, yeah. And this is a brilliant application of cognitive behavioral psychology.
It really is.
The trick is, when you are about to meet someone new, you mentally pretend that they are a long-lost friend. You create a vivid internal narrative.
You imagine that the chaotic vicissitudes of life tore the two of you apart years ago, but holy mackerel, here you are, miraculously reunited at this random Tuesday morning marketing conference.
It's almost like acting.
Yes, and what's absolutely fascinating here is what happens internally on a biological level when you run that mental simulation. Your brain cannot always easily distinguish between a vividly imagined, emotionally resonant scenario and reality.
So your body actually reacts.
Exactly. When you play the "Hello, Old Friend" tape in your mind, it triggers a subconscious chain reaction throughout your entire nervous system.
The text specifically mentions that it softens your eyebrows and even changes the positioning of your toes.
It does. Because think about how your body feels when you encounter someone you genuinely deeply love and trust. Your defensive barriers drop instantly. Your cortisol levels lower. The muscles in your face naturally open up and relax.
That's amazing.
By intentionally imagining this shared history, you are essentially tricking your body into a state of authentic warmth.
And importantly, the text notes a psychological feedback loop here. When you act as though you like someone, you actually start to really like them.
It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
The text also mentions this is especially useful when traveling in foreign countries where you don't share a spoken language.
Oh, absolutely. The "Hello, Old Friend" body language is universally understood because it is rooted in our shared biology.
It ties beautifully into that famous quote mentioned in the text. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care about them.
So true.
So let's say we're projecting all this warmth. We've mastered the eyes, the smile, the pivot. But what is the one physical thing that could instantly ruin this perfect 10-second audition?
Oh, I know this one.
The text is very clear on this. It's fidgeting. The technique is bluntly called limit the fidget.
This is critical, and it is something professional communicators train rigorously to eliminate. Fidgety movements give listeners a profound, unsettling sense that something just isn't right.
Like what kind of movement?
The rule is absolute. When the conversation counts, let your nose itch, let your ear tingle, let your foot prickle. Do not twitch, squirm, or scratch. And above all else, keep your paws away from your face.
Okay, let's unpack why. I understand that tapping your foot is annoying, but why is touching your face such a massive deal breaker? If I rub my nose, why does that instantly ruin my credibility?
Because humans are biologically wired to associate twitching, and specifically hand-to-face movements, with shiftiness and deception.
Really?
Yes, when we are lying or when we are feeling extreme social discomfort, our autonomic nervous system kicks into gear. Blood flow changes rapidly. This physiological shift can actually cause micro-itches on the face and neck.
Oh, so your nose actually does itch when you're stressed.
Exactly. So over thousands of years, we have learned to read those signals. When you rub your nose or shield your eyes or constantly adjust your glasses or massage your neck, your listener's ancient brain gets an instinctual gut feeling that you are fibbing, hiding something, or deeply insecure.
To be 100% credible, you must project physical stillness.
You have to.
I can actually attest to this. Early in my career, I had an interview for a job I desperately wanted. I bought a new shirt for it, and the collar was incredibly stiff and scratchy.
Oh no, I can see where this is going.
It was awful. For the entire 45-minute interview, I kept subtly pulling at the collar, rubbing my neck, trying to relieve the itch. And, shocker, I didn't get the job.
Of course not.
Weeks later, a recruiter told me the hiring manager thought I seemed evasive and uncomfortable with the questions. It wasn't the questions. It was the shirt.
But the hiring manager's subconscious read it as deception.
So the lesson is, no loosening the collar, no wiping away perspiration. You just have to endure the itch.
You endure it to preserve the integrity of the mental snapshot.
It sounds like managing the smile, the eyes, the pivot, and the absolute physical stillness takes an enormous amount of mental bandwidth to do in real time. How do you possibly prepare for all of this?
The text suggests a technique called watch the scene before you make the scene. It's essentially high-level visualization, the kind Olympic athletes use.
Like mental reps.
Right. Before you enter a room, before you even touch the doorknob, you rehearse being the super somebody you want to be.
And there's a specific posture technique for this, right?
Yes. You visualize your posture, what the text calls hang by your teeth posture. You imagine a string attached to your teeth pulling you straight up from the ceiling, elongating your spine.
That's such a vivid image.
You see yourself walking in, shaking hands, executing the flooding smile, making sticky eyes. You pre-feel the pleasure of being in peak form. If you visualize it vividly beforehand, it becomes muscle memory, and it happens much more automatically when you finally step through the door.
Okay, so let's say you've done it. You visualized the scene, you walked in, you pivoted towards someone, you smiled that warm, delayed, flooding smile, and you've maintained sticky eye contact without scratching your nose once.
You're doing great.
You have flawlessly nailed the silent 10-second audition. And here is the friction point. Eventually, the silence becomes deafening.
You do have to talk.
You have to open your mouth. Your body language has successfully invited them in. They are looking at you, expecting a magical interaction.
Yeah.
The pressure is on. How do you prevent that open door from slamming shut the moment you speak?
Indeed. The nonverbal impression buys you immense goodwill, but the verbal interaction builds the actual bridge.
So how do we move from a great visual impression to actual dialogue? The text starts with a technique called make a mood match.
This is the fundamental bridge to building immediate rapport. The text tells us that before you open your mouth, you need to take a voice sample or a psychic photograph of your listener's state of mind.
You have to read the room.
Exactly. Read the room of their face. Do they look buoyant and excited? Do they look bored to tears? Are they visibly stressed and blitzed?
And the goal here is that if you want to bring people around to your thoughts, you must first match their mood and their voice tone, even if just for a fleeting moment.
Yes. The text uses an analogy here that I think perfectly captures the science of the mama and the baby. Let's break down the psychology of this because it's brilliant.
I love this part.
It perfectly illustrates the concept of psychological mirroring. Imagine a baby is whimpering, red-faced, and miserable. A mother doesn't just walk up, shake her finger, and aggressively shout, "Quiet down, be happy," in a booming, cheerful voice.
That would terrify the baby.
Right. The stark, jarring contrast in mood would terrify the baby and likely make it cry twice as hard. Instead, instinctively, the mother matches the baby's misery.
She validates it.
She scrunches up her face, lowers her tone, and says, "Ooh, ooh, oh no," in a sympathetic, sad cadence. She meets them exactly where they are. Only after establishing that emotional match does she gradually, slowly transition both of them into hush-hush happy sounds.
And the text bluntly says, your listeners are all big babies.
We absolutely are. Look, adults require the exact same psychological validation. We just hide it better under suits and ties.
True.
If a colleague is visibly stressed out, frantically typing an email with a furrowed brow, and you approach them with high energy, boisterous enthusiasm, shouting, "Hey buddy, how was the weekend?" you will physically repel them. It feels like an assault on their nervous system.
So small talk isn't initially about exchanging facts.
Not at all. It is entirely about putting people at ease by convincing them that the two of you are in sync. You do that by matching their mood. If they are subdued, you speak softly. If they are energized, you bring the energy.
Which perfectly explains the next technique, prosaic with passion. Honestly, as someone who used to overthink networking, this was a huge relief to read.
Oh, I bet. It takes the pressure off.
It really does.
Hmm.
The text claims that if you are worried about your very first words being clever or profound, don't be, because 80% of your listener's impression has absolutely nothing to do with the actual words you say.
It goes right back to the idea that the delivery mechanism matters infinitely more than the text itself. Almost anything you say at first is fine, no matter how prosaic, mundane, or cliche, like "crazy weather we're having," or "man, this line for coffee is long."
As long as you deliver it right.
Exactly. As long as it is delivered with an empathetic mood, a positive demeanor, and passionate delivery. The passion makes you sound like an exciting person. The empathy puts them at ease. The words are just the vehicle for the emotion.
Okay, but eventually you still need an actual topic to bridge the gap and start a real conversation.
Yeah,
And initiating contact with a stranger is terrifying for most people.
it is.
So the text offers 3 specific tactical icebreakers for navigating social spaces. The first is always wear a what's it. Let's dwell on this for a second. What is a what's it?
A what's it is simply a conversational prop. It's a purposefully unusual item you wear or carry on your person.
Like what?
It could be a unique vintage lapel pin, a strange, brightly colored tie, an interesting piece of abstract jewelry, or even a book with a highly provocative title. Its sole purpose in the universe is to give curious strangers a low-stakes excuse to approach you and say, "Excuse me, what is that?"
It's an invitation. If you think about the sociology of public spaces, humans are generally terrified of initiating contact. We fear rejection. We assume everyone wants to be left alone.
Absolutely.
A what's it acts as a psychological permission slip. It signals, I am open to being asked about this item.
Uh-huh.
I used to know a guy who would wear a wildly colorful, slightly obnoxious parrot pin to boring corporate mixers.
That's brilliant.
He said he never had to start a conversation. People always came to him to ask about the bird.
It works. Now, if you don't have a what's it say you're in standard business attire, you can use the second technique. Who's that? Yes. This is where you go to the party giver or event organizer, point out someone across the room you want to meet, and pump the host for a few facts. Who is the woman in the blue blazer?
Gathering intel.
Then you either ask the host to make the formal introduction, or you use those facts as your own customized icebreaker. The text notes that skilled politicians use this masterfully.
It allows you to enter the conversation pre-armed with context. Approaching someone cold is hard. Approaching someone and saying, the host tells me you just got back from climbing Kilimanjaro, is incredibly powerful because it immediately flatters them and gives them their favorite topic to discuss.
Exactly. It's a layup.
But what if you don't have a what's it and the host is busy serving drinks, so you can't use who's at? How do you break into a tight, closed circle of people who are already chatting?
The hardest scenario.
The text suggests a technique called eavesdrop in.
This is a bold move. It requires a bit of social courage, but it is highly effective if executed with confidence.
The idea is that you simply sidle up near a tight swarm of folks you want to infiltrate. You physically position yourself on the periphery, open your ears, and wait for any flimsy excuse to jump in. When they mention a movie you've seen or a city you've visited, you just step in and say, "Excuse me, I couldn't help it over here."
Simple as that.
But I have to admit, my immediate fear here is rejection. Won't they think I'm a total creep for listening to their private conversation?
That is the natural fear. But the text addresses this directly. It asks, will they be taken aback? Yes, momentarily. Will they get over it? Yes, momentarily. Will you be in the conversation? Absolutely.
So you just have to push through it.
You have to remember that at a networking event or a party, conversations are implicitly public. By saying, I couldn't help but overhear, you are acknowledging the slight intrusion, which makes it polite. But you are also offering value by contributing to their topic. It just takes a little courage to weather that 2-second initial awkwardness.
Right. And once you're in, you have to hold your own. Let's talk about what happens when the conversation is actually flowing and you get hit with those standard, inevitable questions like, where are you from or what do you do?
The usual suspects.
The text has a strict rule for this. Never the naked city and never the naked job.
The foundational principle across both of these is baiting the hook.
Let me give you a personal example of doing this wrong. For years, when someone asked where I was from, I would just say, Chicago? And then silence.
Yep, nowhere to go from there.
The other person would just nod and say, oh, cool. Yeah, I had dropped a conversational dead end right in their lap.
Exactly. When you give a one-word answer like Chicago, you are unfairly challenging their powers of imagination to keep the conversation going. You are forcing them to do all the heavy lifting.
Which isn't fair to them.
If they haven't been to Chicago or don't follow Chicago sports, they have nothing to say. You are leaving them floundering like a fish on a dock.
So, to bait the hook, you have to flesh it out. You have to throw out what the text calls delicious facts for people to munch on. If I say, I'm from Chicago, right near the lake where the winters are brutal but the deep dish pizza makes up for it, I have just given them 3 different hooks to grab onto. Weather, bodies of water, or food.
It's the exact same for your profession. If you are an economist and you just say, I'm an economist, to someone completely outside that field, you might as well say you are a theoretical physicist.
They won't know what to ask.
You must provide a hook. You might say, I'm an economist, which means I spend most of my day looking at spreadsheets trying to predict why people buy things they don't actually need.
That immediately invites a follow-up question. Oh, really? Why do we buy things we don't need? And this applies to introducing other people, too. The text calls it never the naked introduction. Don't just say, John, meet Mary.
You have to bait the hook for them to talk to each other.
John, meet Mary. Mary is an incredible photographer who just got back from a month in Peru. Now John has something to swim with.
The text uses a wonderful, slightly cynical, but very true quote here. No man would listen to you talk if he didn't know it was his turn next. You have to provide the stepping stones for them to comfortably take their turn.
Which brings us to the mechanics of keeping the conversation alive once everyone is comfortably taking turns. Let's look at the swiveling spotlight.
This is a foundational concept in human relations, and it dictates the balance of power and interest in any interaction. You have to imagine a giant, intensely bright, revolving spotlight hanging between you and your conversation partner.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
When you talk, the spotlight is shining on you. When they talk, it shines on them. The psychological secret is that the longer you keep that spotlight shining away from you and squarely onto them, the more interesting, brilliant, and charming they will find you.
Okay, let me offer an analogy here to expand on this, because I think the quality of the spotlight matters just as much as where it's pointed.
Oh, absolutely. Let's hear it.
It's like the difference between being in a stark police interrogation versus sunbathing on a gorgeous beach.
Ooh, I like that.
If you leave the spotlight on them, but you are just aggressively grilling them with rapid-fire factual questions. Where did you go to school? What was your GPA? How long have you lived here? It feels like an interrogation. The light is harsh.
It's too intense.
But if you keep the warm light of your genuine curiosity shining on them, asking them how they felt about their school or what their favorite part of the city is, they feel like they're sunbathing in your attention. They feel warm, validated, and fascinating. If you turn the spotlight onto yourself too much, bragging about your own accomplishments, you're essentially blinding them to your own charm.
That is a phenomenal analogy. People grow infinitely more by listening than by talking. The text emphasizes that when you meet someone new, you learn so much more about the world if you ask about their life.
To help with that, the text suggests being a word detective. You listen to their every word like a gumshoe, like Sherlock Holmes, looking for hidden clues to their preferred topic.
People will inadvertently drop breadcrumbs.
Yes. The evidence of what they actually want to talk about will slip out. I drove in from the suburbs, traffic was awful, but I was listening to this great history podcast. Boom. The traffic is a fact, the podcast is a passion. When that clue slips out, You spring on that subject.
And if you ever find yourself completely stuck, your brain goes blank, and you are wondering, what do I say next to keep the spotlight on them? There is a brilliant fallback technique called parroting.
I love this one. Let's role play it. You tell me a fact.
I took my dog to the vet this morning because he was acting lethargic.
Acting lethargic.
Yeah, he wouldn't eat his breakfast, and usually he inhales it, so I got really worried.
See? All I did was act like a parrot. I simply repeated the last two words you said with an inquisitive, empathetic tone. It instantly puts the ball right back in your court, and all I need to do is keep listening as you naturally expand on your own thought.
It is incredibly effective because it proves you are listening while requiring zero creative cognitive load on your part.
The final technique here for keeping things lively is encore. This happens when you are with a group of people. If you know someone in the group has a great story, one where they really shine or overcame a funny obstacle, you intentionally tee it up for them.
You give them the floor.
You say to the group, "Oh, you all have to hear Sarah tell the story about the time she accidentally crashed the mayor's wedding."
It is the sweetest sound a performer or storyteller can hear. It shines the spotlight directly on them, validating their experiences in front of an audience, which is a massive psychological boost. You are essentially acting as their personal publicist in that moment, elevating their status in the room.
You're setting them up to win.
Oh,
And people never forget who set them up to win.
so true.
Okay, so we've covered the nonverbal entry, the mood matching, and the mechanics of keeping a conversation flowing. But we need to dig deeper. It's not just how you keep the conversation going, it's the actual vocabulary you choose that elevates you.
Yes, the specific words we choose act as subtle, powerful markers of our social, intellectual, and professional status.
This brings us to the lexicon of the VIP. How do we elevate our communication to the level of the big cats, as the text calls them? Let's start with answering that inevitable, sometimes dreaded question. What do you do?
We already know from Baiting the Hook not to give a naked job title, but the text takes it a step further with a concept called the nutshell resume.
The nutshell resume. I like the sound of that.
The nutshell resume is about profound contextual awareness. Think about it. Top-level executives don't send the exact same generic resume to every single job opening. They meticulously customize it. Similarly, you should let a different, completely true story about your professional life roll off your tongue depending entirely on who is standing in front of you listening.
That text provides a fantastic illustrative story here about a man named Roberto. Let's really break this narrative down because it perfectly captures the immense power of this technique in a high-stakes environment.
Roberto was an executive out of work, and he was simultaneously applying for two vastly different positions.
Right. What were the two jobs?
One was a sales manager role for an ice cream company, and the other was head of strategic planning for a major fast food chain.
So two very different companies.
Very different. And Roberto did his homework. He researched both companies deeply. He found out that the ice cream company had excellent products, but was suffering from severe, localized sales difficulties. They were bleeding revenue.
Ouch. And the fast food chain.
On the other hand, he discovered the fast food chain was financially flush, but had long-range, ambitious international aspirations. They wanted to conquer Europe.
So imagine Roberto sitting in the interview chair for both of these companies. When they asked him, "Tell us about your background," did he tell the exact same chronological story about his career? Absolutely not.
He never deviated from the truth, not one iota. He didn't invent degrees or falsify numbers, but he ruthlessly curated his nutshell resume for each specific audience.
How did he play the ice cream company?
For the struggling ice cream company, he highlighted his past experience turning a small, failing company around by doubling its sales force and restructuring its regional distribution. He spoke entirely in the language of turnarounds and sales metrics. That hit their specific, burning pain point.
Brilliant. For the fast food chain.
He completely shifted the spotlight. He barely mentioned the local sales restructuring. Instead, he underscored his early career experience working in Europe, his fluency in international supply chains, and his deep knowledge of foreign market entry.
And what was the result? Both firms offered him the job. He became indispensable to both of their unique visions. He played them off against each other and ended up choosing the fast food chain at almost double his original salary offer.
That is the absolute power of extreme empathy in business. It's the discipline of asking yourself, what possible interest could this specific person have in my answer before you even take a breath to speak?
Exactly. The question isn't who am I? The question is, How could my specific professional experience uniquely benefit this person's life or company? You curate your reality to match their needs.
Now, to do that effectively, to be able to shape-shift your narrative so fluidly, you need a strong vocabulary. The text suggests building your personal thesaurus.
Just expanding your word bank.
Yes. It claims that just 50 words separate an average, middle-of-the-road vocabulary from a rich, verbally elite one.
Really? Just 50 words.
The very practical exercise. It suggests looking up tired, overworked words you use every single day, words like smart, nice, pretty, or good, and slipping your tongue into a few new, sharper words from a thesaurus, just like slipping on a new pair of tailored shoes.
Like upgrades.
Right. Instead of saying a presentation was good, you call it incisive. Instead of calling someone smart, you call them a snoot. Substitute just one word a day for 2 months, and you elevate your verbal status instantly.
Now, here is a technique in the VIP lexicon section that goes against almost every networking instinct I have ever developed. It's called Kill the Quick Me Too.
Oh, this one is tough.
The text advises that when you discover you have something in common with someone, you should bite your tongue. You should actively hold back and wait to reveal it.
Yeah.
I have to push back hard on this. Isn't finding common ground the entire point of small talk and networking? If you say you love vintage sci-fi movies, and I also love vintage sci-fi movies, why on earth would I keep that a secret? That's the spark of a friendship.
It seems entirely counterintuitive, I agree, but it addresses a very specific, subtle psychological trap regarding power dynamics.
Okay, lay it on me.
When someone enthusiastically mentions a shared interest and you immediately jump in and interrupt with, "Oh my gosh, me too, I love that,"
Yeah.
it certainly creates a connection. But it also makes you look, as the text brilliantly describes it, like a lonely little stray, hungry for quick connection.
Wow, lonely little stray.
It reads as slightly desperate. It signals that you are so eager to find a point of similarity that you're willing to step all over their moment of expression just to prove you belong in the conversation.
Interesting. So it's about neediness versus restraint.
Exactly. By waiting, by letting them talk passionately and completely about their interest without interrupting, validating their enthusiasm, and then casually, calmly revealing much later in the conversation that you also happen to share that interest, you emerge as a confident big cat.
The big cat energy.
You show that you are emotionally secure enough to listen and appreciate their perspective without immediately needing to make the conversation about yourself. You validate them first.
That makes a lot of sense.
The text does offer a caveat, however. You shouldn't wait too long, or it will seem tricky, like you are purposefully hiding something to be manipulative. But that initial confident pause projects immense security.
So it's about not stepping on their moment in the spotlight, just to eagerly prove you belong there too. You let them shine, and then you join them.
Beautifully said.
Speaking of keeping the focus on them, let's talk about a linguistic trick called communication.
This is a subtle linguistic shift with a massive subconscious impact. The rule is simple. Start every appropriate sentence with the word you. It immediately grabs the listener's attention because it pushes their pride button.
The text gives a great example for this. Imagine you want to ask a colleague to lunch. Instead of saying, "I think this new Indian restaurant is great, let's go," you rephrase it.
Right.
You say, "Jill, you will really love this new Indian restaurant. Will you join me there?"
It removes the I entirely. It saves them from having to translate your statement into me terms. It makes the invitation fundamentally about their experience and their pleasure rather than your desire.
It's an irresistible spice in conversation.
Yeah.
We're all deeply interested in sentences that begin with the word you.
And as we're spicing up our conversation, we also need to know what ingredients to throw out. The text warns us, don't touch a cliche with a 10-foot pole. Which, ironically, is a cliche.
Yeah, the author has a bit of fun there. But the point is serious. Cliches like dumb as a doorknob when hell freezes over, or thinking outside the box, signal to high-level communicators that you lack intellectual originality. You are relying on prefabricated linguistic furniture.
Instead, the text suggests is using Joe Smith's jive. This means reading books by motivational speakers or brilliant essayists to cull clever quotations, pull pearls of wisdom, and dream up crazy quotables that rhyme or amuse. It shows that you put intellectual effort into your speech.
And finally, in the VIP lexicon, there's a technique called call a spade a spade. The big cats, as the text calls them, don't hide behind polite, timid euphemisms.
No, they use real words. They speak the language confidently. If someone is rich, big cats call them rich. It's the little cats who feel the need to tiptoe around reality and substitute nervous words like wealthy or comfortable. If someone dies, they say died, not passed away. Directness is a privilege of confidence.
Okay, let's unpack this all. We have the vocabulary, we have the first impression, we know how to keep the ball bouncing. But the text argues that the true secret to the highest VIP level of networking isn't just about sounding smart or standing up straight.
It goes deeper.
It's about making the other person feel entirely, fundamentally understood on a subconscious, almost neurological level.
Which is arguably the most difficult yet most rewarding skill to master. It moves beyond polite conversation and into the realm of deep psychological alignment.
Exactly. This brings us to the art of subliminal empathy. We're moving past just listening to their facts and moving into mirroring their very reality. The first technique here is echoing.
Echoing is a deceptively simple linguistic technique that packs a powerful wallop. You listen very closely to the speaker's arbitrary choice of nouns, verbs, and adjectives, and you consciously echo them back in your responses.
So not using my preferred words, using their exact words.
Precisely. If a client says, "We need to ensure the integrity of the framework," you do not reply, "I agree, we need to protect the structure." You reply, "I agree, we will focus entirely on the integrity of the framework."
Oh, I see.
Hearing their own specific, chosen vocabulary come out of your mouth creates a powerful subliminal rapport. It makes them feel on a deep subconscious level that you share their values, their corporate culture, their attitudes, and even their familial experiences.
It's physical mirroring, but with language. I like to think of this using an analogy based on another technique mentioned earlier in the text called be a copy class. Imagine you are dancing. You pretend the other person is your dance instructor. You watch how they move. Are they fast, slow, jerky, fluid, jazzy, balletic?
Right, you match them.
You naturally imitate their style of physical movement to make them subliminally comfortable. Echoing is just doing that exact same dance, stepping exactly where they step, but verbally.
That's a great synthesis. And you can take that verbal mirroring a massive step further with a technique called potent imaging. This is where you weave metaphors and analogies entirely from the listener's world, not your own.
Right. If I'm pitching a business plan and I love aviation, I might naturally say, this plan's going to take off like a jet. But if I know my customer's an avid gardener, my aviation analogy does nothing for them.
They won't connect with it.
Using potent imaging, I shift my language to their reality. I talk about sowing the seeds for success or pruning back the unnecessary expenses to let the core business blossom.
That's so much better.
If my boss owns a boat, I talk about a concept that will stay afloat or navigate choppy waters. If the client plays tennis, I say the idea hits the sweet spot or is a perfect serve.
By evoking their specific lifestyle and passions, you are giving your points far more emotional punch. You are hinting that you think like them and value what they value. From a cognitive perspective, it actually reduces the cognitive load required for them to understand your pitch because you are translating your ideas into their native conceptual language.
That is brilliant. Now, how do we show we're actively listening while they speak without just nodding and saying, yep, yeah, over and over like a brain-dead zombie?
The text calls those people unconscious ummers. It's a terrible habit. To fix this, you must employ empathizers. You vocalize complete, compassionate sentences to show active understanding. Instead of grunting, you wait for a pause and say, I see exactly what you mean, or that's a lovely thing to say, or I can imagine how difficult that was.
But the text takes this even deeper with a technique that absolutely fascinated me. Anatomically correct empathizers. This is where high-level psychology meets linguistics.
I want to dive deep into the science of this one because it is incredibly revealing about how human brains work. Neurolinguistic programming suggests that humans process the world through different primary cognitive styles.
Right, the different types of processors.
Some people are highly visual processors, some are auditory processors, and some are kinesthetic processors, meaning they process the world primarily through feeling, intuition, and touch.
And the text says people constantly reveal their primary processing style through their everyday vocabulary if you just listen for it.
Exactly. You have to listen to what part of their anatomy they are metaphorically talking through. Let's do a quick quiz.
Let's do it.
If a colleague comes to you and says, with this new strategy, we can really see our way clear to a profit in 6 months, it looks bright. What are they?
They are using visual references. See, clear, bright. They process the world through their eyes.
Right. So if you respond with, I hear you, or that sounds good, there is a slight invisible cognitive disconnect. You are speaking auditory, they are speaking visual. Instead, you must use an anatomically correct visual empathizer. You say, I see what you mean, or you really have a clear picture of that.
Okay, what if they say, this plan has a really good ring to it? I like the tone of it.
They are auditory processors, so you would respond in kind, it does sound great, or I hear exactly what you're saying.
And if they say, I have a gut feeling about this, it just feels heavy.
They are kinesthetic, they process through the body, so you respond, I can understand how you feel, or you have a really good grasp of the situation.
Wow.
By aligning your language with how a person physically and neurologically processes the world, you bypass their intellectual defenses entirely. You aren't just agreeing with their idea, you are speaking directly to their nervous system in its mother tongue.
That is essentially weaponized empathy. It's incredible. Speaking of bypassing defenses, the text introduces another psychological shortcut called the premature we. This is a way to create instant intimacy with a near stranger.
Sociologists categorize conversations into 4 distinct levels of intimacy. Level 1 is cliches, nice weather. Level 2 is facts, the train is late. Level 3 is feelings and personal questions, how do you feel about your job? And level 4, the most intimate, is the language of we and us, implying a shared destiny or partnership.
And most people just inch their way through those levels.
Right. But the technique suggests purposefully scrambling the signals in their psyche by skipping levels 1 and 2 entirely. You cut right to the level 4 we to elicit intimate feelings.
So if I'm at a catered event, standing in a buffet line behind a total stranger, instead of using a level 1 cliche like, the food looks good, I use the premature we. I say, hey, they really laid out a nice spread for us. Or, uh-oh, we're going to get fat if we let ourselves enjoy all these desserts.
Exactly. It creates a temporary, implicit alliance. You instantly form an in-group of 2 against the rest of the world.
And you can solidify that temporary in-group using a follow-up technique called instant history.
Oh, this one's fun.
If something funny, weird, or annoying happens during that first encounter, say the waiter drops a tray of glasses near you, you purposefully turn it into a private joke. Later in the evening, you find a few words to reprise the laugh, making it a shared refrain. Watch out for the flying glass. Suddenly you aren't strangers anymore. You share a history, however brief.
Subliminal empathy and shared history are powerful, powerful tools. But there's an even more potent mechanism for making people feel valued. And this ties directly back to our core lens for this deep dive. The command to love and validate others.
Which brings us to the incredibly tricky territory of praise, differentiating the power of praise from the folly of flattery.
It's a fine line.
Because we all want to make people feel good. We all want to be the person who brightens a room. But absolutely nobody wants to sound like a sycophant, a suck-up, or a flatterer. So how do we praise effectively and credibly?
The text outlines some sociological rules of praise that are frankly mind-boggling and reveal some uncomfortable truths about human nature.
Yes, the research here is fascinating. First, sociologists have found that a compliment from a completely new person is actually significantly more potent and believable than one from someone you already know well.
Which feels sad. Why is a stranger's compliment worth more than my spouse's?
Because of the discount rate.
Yeah.
We expect our friends, spouses, and mothers to say nice things about us. It's their job to love us. So when they say, you look great, our brain automatically discounts the value of the praise. It's expected. But a stranger has no obligation to praise you. So when they do, it feels objective, earned, and therefore highly potent.
That makes sense. What's the second rule?
Second, according to the text, your compliment has more credibility when given to someone whose face you've never seen, like over the phone, or, somewhat cruelly, to an unattractive person. Why? Because attractive people are used to being flattered by people who want something from them. They are suspicious of praise.
That's a brutal truth.
And third, self-effacing remarks, putting yourself down while praising them, like saying, I could never give a presentation as brilliant as yours, only work if the listener already perceives you as higher on the social or professional totem pole.
Wait, how does that work?
If you are the CEO and you self-efface to an intern, makes the intern feel amazing. But if you are the intern and you self-efface to the CEO, it just reduces your own credibility further. You just look incompetent.
Wow. So the mechanics of direct praise are highly dependent on status and relationship. It's a minefield. To navigate this safely, the text highly recommends a technique called grapevine glory, or being a carrier pigeon.
This is universally the safest, most effective form of praise. A compliment someone hears directly to their face is never as exciting or as credible as one they overhear or hear through the grapevine. So you deliver praise via third party. You use the tell a friend method.
Because if I go to your best friend and say, the host I'm working with today is just phenomenally insightful, knowing full well your friend will eventually tell you I said that, it completely removes any suspicion that I am an apple-polishing, boot-licking, egg-sucking sycophant, as the text so colorfully puts it.
I have absolutely nothing to gain by telling a third party. Therefore, the praise must be 100% genuine.
In the text notes, we should make it a habit to always be a carrier pigeon of kudos. Instead of spreading toxic gossip, fly to people with the good news you hear about them. It even mentions Stumpy Joe, a stuffed museum pigeon, warning that while we might not get posthumously stuffed and put on display in a museum for bringing good news, everyone loves the carrier pigeon of kind thoughts.
It creates a permanent halo effect around you. When you constantly deliver good news, you become neurologically associated with positive feelings in the minds of your colleagues.
Another subtle, sophisticated way to praise without seeming like a flatterer is implied magnificence or accidental adulation.
This is a fantastic linguistic trick. You presuppose their greatness and stealthily sneak the praise into the parenthetical part of your sentence. You make the compliment a secondary assumption rather than the main stated point.
So instead of saying, "You are so smart, how did you fix this?" you say, "Given your deep expertise in this area, how do you suggest we proceed?" The praise is baked into the premise.
But the text offers a hilarious and painful cautionary tale here about a young Southern boy at a high school prom who tried to use this technique and failed catastrophically. Let's tell the story because it highlights the danger of fumbling the adulation.
It's a tragicomedy. The boy is dancing with his date, Mary Lou. He wants to imply that she's incredibly graceful, but he also wants to acknowledge that she isn't the stereotypical frail prom queen type. He thinks he is being incredibly suave.
So he leans in, trying to use implied magnificence, and whispers, "Gosh, Mary Lou, for a fat gal, you dance real good."
Oh no. A total collapse of the technique. He made the insult the premise and the compliment the caveat. He should have said, "With your natural rhythm, I'm lucky you agreed to dance with me."
Exactly. Don't be the boy at the prom. Now, if you want to bypass the grapevine and the implied tricks, and you just want to be direct, you use the killer compliment. The rules here are strict to ensure it lands with impact.
You wait until the very end of the conversation. You do not lead with it. As you are parting, you look the stranger right in the eye, you use their name, and you give a compliment that is extremely specific and deeply personal.
Not, "You're nice," or "Great suit." You say, "Sarah, you have an exquisite air of honesty about you. It's been a pleasure." It curls their toes because it is so incredibly targeted to their character, not just their appearance.
Now, I want to talk about a praise technique called the tombstone game. This is specifically for loved ones and significant others, not strangers. The text says you should ask the important people in your life what they would like engraved on their tombstone.
Okay, kind of intense.
You chisel that answer into your memory, you do not mention it again, and then weeks or months later, when the moment is right, you feed those exact words back to them as a sincere compliment.
I have to push back here. When I read this, it felt a bit morbid. Talking about tombstones to give a compliment, is that really practical or appropriate?
I completely understand the hesitation. It sounds macabre on the surface, but let's unpack the profound existential psychology underneath it. When you ask someone what they want written on their tombstone, what are they really answering? They aren't talking about death.
No, I guess they're talking about legacy.
They are revealing their deepest, idealized self-image. They are telling you how they desperately, fundamentally want the world and history to remember them.
Because, as the text points out, everyone wonders if the world will truly note how brilliant or creative or fiercely caring they were.
Exactly. Every human being is desperate to be recognized for their specialness over all other ordinary mortals. By listening to that tombstone answer, remembering that specific trait, and feeding it back to them organically later, you are truly the most fiercely caring person I have ever met. You aren't just giving a nice compliment.
You're touching their core.
You are acting as a mirror, reflecting their highest, most sacred self-image back to them. The text describes it as a heady drug of appreciation. It tells their subconscious, "At last, someone truly sees me. Someone loves me for who I truly am, the way I want to be seen." It is the ultimate, profound form of validation.
When you put it that way, stripping away the graveyard imagery, it's actually deeply romantic and profoundly empathetic. You are validating their soul.
It really is.
And of course, if someone praises us, the text reminds us to use boomeranging. Like the French, bounce the compliment right back. Don't bat it away by saying, "Oh, it was nothing." Catch it and murmur, "That's very kind of you to say." Let the good feeling fly right back to the thrower.
It creates a continuous loop of goodwill, rather than shutting down the interaction with false modesty.
So we've covered one-on-one intimacy, deep psychological mirroring, and profound praise. But what about the chaos of a wider environment? Networking events, noisy rooms, or managing a high-stakes phone call?
The big leagues.
This brings us to the mechanics of working a room, mastering the phone, and surviving bloopers. Let's start with party mechanics. The first rule is munching or mingling.
The text astutely observes politicians who are the absolute masters of working a chaotic room. If you watch closely, politicians never ever hold food or drink at a party. Why? Because they intimately understand spatial relationships and psychological barriers.
It creates a wall.
Any object you hold in your hands, a drink, a plate of hors d'oeuvre, a briefcase, acts as a literal physical brick wall between you and the person you are trying to connect with. It blocks access. It closes off your body language.
The only physical exception the text mentions is a belt buckle. So the rule is absolute. Eat before you go. Come to munch or come to mingle, but never both.
Once you arrive at the event empty-handed, you execute rubberneck the room.
Before you engage with anyone, you stop dramatically in the doorway and slowly survey the situation.
Yeah.
Your eyes travel back and forth, scanning the space like a SWAT team, wiping out anything that moves. But you aren't doing it to show off or look cool.
You are diagnosing the room. You are mapping the lighting, the location of the bar, the flow of traffic, and most importantly, the faces and the mood of the clusters.
You are gathering tactical intelligence before you deploy. And once you are in the room navigating the crowd, you use come hither hands. This is pure instinctual body language.
You arrange your body in an open, welcoming position. Exposing open palms and wrists subconsciously says to the room, "I accept you, and I am unarmed. I have nothing to hide." Conversely, closed knuckles, crossed arms, or hands stuffed in pockets say, "Get lost, I am closed off." People instinctively, gravitationally pull toward open palms.
Now, to truly make people feel like movie stars at these massive events, you use a technique called tracking. Politicians do this religiously to build their loyal networks. They track the tiniest details of your life.
They keep a little black box, either mentally or physically, of the last concern, major event, or obscure enthusiasm you discussed with them. Then, the absolute first words of their next interaction with you months later relate directly to that specific information. How did your daughter's violin recital go?
It confirms to the listener their deep, egotistical conviction that they are the hero of the story and that you recognize their importance.
And a highly practical way to do this is the business card dossier. Right after you talk to someone, you step away, pull out a pen, and write notes on the back of their card. Their favorite drink, their hometown, a joke they told, the name of their dog. Next time you see them, before the meeting, you review the dossier and invoke that minor detail like it's a major front-page news story. It makes them feel incredibly important.
Okay, let's pivot from the physical room to a different kind of room, the virtual room of a phone call, mastering phone mechanics. The first technique is talking gestures.
Because you completely lack the visual 10-second snapshot on the phone, they can't see your flooding smile or your big baby pivot. You must turn your smiles into pure sound. You have to replace physical gestures with vocal energy. The text advises thinking of yourself as the star of an old-school radio drama. You have to punch up your entire act, your enthusiasm, and your modulation by about 30% just to compensate for the lost visual data.
You also use a technique called the name shower. You say their name far more often on the phone than you ever would in person. If we were face-to-face and I kept saying, well, as I said, it's important that we review this, but adding your name constantly, it would sound pandering and weird.
But on the phone, peppering their name into the conversation recreates the physical eye contact you can't give them. It keeps their attention anchored.
Now, navigating gatekeepers on the phone secretaries, executive assistants, is an art form. The text offers two specific techniques for this: the sneaky screen and the ho-hum caper.
The sneaky screen is for your gatekeeper to use. Usually, if I call someone important, the assistant asks, "Who's calling?" I say my name, they put me on hold, and then come back and say, "I'm sorry, she's in a meeting." It is blatantly obvious I just got screened based on my name. It feels awful.
The sneaky screen fixes this. Instead of asking who's calling and then rejecting them, your staff should cheerfully say, "Oh yes, I'll put you right through. May I just tell her who's calling?" Only after the name is given do they put the person on hold, come back and say, I am so sorry, she just stepped into a meeting. The caller never feels screened. They feel like they just missed you. They fall for it every time.
And the ho-hum caper is for when you're trying to bypass someone else's gatekeeper. Instead of formally asking, hello, may I please speak to Mrs. Bigshot, you casually let a pronoun roll off your tongue. Hi, Bob Smith here. Is she in? Tossing off that highly familiar she signals to the secretary that you and the boss are old buddies. It bypasses the formal screening protocol.
But the absolute golden rule of the phone, no matter who you are talking to, is what color is your time?
No matter how urgent your call is, you always begin by asking if it's a convenient time to talk. Are you in the middle of something? You never want to smash your heavy footprints right in the middle of their sands of time. It prevents a reflexive, annoyed no to whatever you're about to ask them.
It is the ultimate sign of respect for their autonomy and their schedule. Now, in all these interactions parties, intense phone calls, networking events, mistakes will inevitably happen. We are human. We have to talk about handling bloopers and active conflict. The text's approach here is fascinating because it goes against the instinct to constantly apologize or point out the elephant in the room. It advocates for a rule called see no bloopers, hear no bleepers.
Cool, high-level communicators allow their friends and associates the pleasurable myth of being entirely above human frailty. They simply do not notice minor spills, slips of the tongue, fumbles, or embarrassing faux pas, because people hate to be reminded of the moments when they are not shining. By ignoring the blooper completely, you preserve their dignity and save them the embarrassment of apologizing.
I have a perfect example of this. I was at a fancy dinner party, and I was enthusiastically telling a story with my hands, and I knocked my entire glass of red wine over. It shattered. Red wine everywhere. I was mortified.
Oh, wow, what happened? The host of the party, without missing a beat, didn't gasp, didn't say, oh no. He just kept making unbroken eye contact with me, casually threw a napkin over the spill, and said, and then what did the guy say? He completely ignored the blooper. I have never loved a person more in that moment. He saved my dignity.
And if someone is telling a story and gets interrupted by a waiter or a dropped glass or a loud noise, you use lend a helping tongue. You wait for the chaos to clear, and then you explicitly rescue their aborted story. You say, please get back to your story. What happened after the train broke down?
It shows that you are genuinely invested in what they were saying, which is a massive compliment. You are proving that their words matter more than the distraction.
But what about active conflict? What if someone is furiously angry with you? The text gives us two paired techniques. Empty their tanks and echo the emo. I love the analogy I thought of for this one. Think about taking your car in for an oil change. It's like draining an engine of bad oil. If someone needs to vent, if they are furious, you have to let their emotional needle hit absolute empty. You must let the very last drop of their anger drip out and splash completely onto the cement before you even attempt to pour in your own ideas, apologies, or facts.
That is a perfect, highly accurate visualization. The text explicitly states a core rule of human conflict. Facts speak. Emotions shout. If someone is shouting with emotion and you try to argue calmly with logic and facts, you will fail. They cannot hear you over the roar of their own nervous system. You must hear their facts, yes, but you must empathize like mad with their emotions. Smearing on the emo, validating their anger, matching their intensity without matching their aggression is the only way to calm the storm. Only when their emotional tank is completely empty and they have nothing left to yell can they start receiving your ideas.
And if the conflict is entirely your fault, you use my goof your game. It's not enough to just say, I'm sorry, and correct your mistake. You turn the mistake into an actual benefit for the victim. You ask yourself, what can I do so they're actually delighted I made this flub? If you mess up an order, you don't just refund them, you give them the next 3 orders free. You overcompensate to rebuild trust.
Now, what if the dynamic is reversed? What if the other person is the transgressor? What if you catch them in a lie, or they are wildly exaggerating a story to make themselves look good? The technique here is leave an escape hatch.
No, this one really surprised me. The text says, don't confront the dirty duck directly. Let the transgressor out of the trap with their tricky puss in one piece. Do not call them out unless it's your absolute moral responsibility to correct the record for safety reasons.
Why do big winners let bad news people get away with lying or exaggerating? Shouldn't we hold people accountable? It is about preserving your own status and your own emotional energy. By closing your mouth and avoiding a direct, petty confrontation over an exaggerated story, you are silently communicating a massive power dynamic. You are so beneath me and your lie is so pathetic, I am not even going to waste my breath or my words on you. You maintain the absolute high ground by refusing to roll in the mud with them.
It all ties back into a master overarching concept that governs all of this. The text calls it the great scorecard in the sky. Can you analyze this for us? How does the scorecard work?
The scorecard is the invisible, ruthless social accounting system that governs all human interactions. Any two people, the moment they meet, have a fluctuating scorecard hovering above their heads. And the fundamental unspoken rule of society is that the player with the currently lower score must pay deference to the player with the higher score.
So every interaction involves a subconscious calculation.
Yes. Big winners. Highly empathetic communicators. Before they pick up a phone, before they shake a hand, before they ask for a favor, do a rapid calculation. They ask, who benefits most from this relationship right now? What has each of us done recently that demands deference? Have I asked for too many favors? Have I given enough praise? And what can I do right now to even the score? Navigating these bloopers, giving potent praise, actively listening, lending a helping tongue, all of it is a way of meticulously managing that scorecard to ensure mutual respect, avoid resentment, and maintain continuous healthy connection.
Which brings us to the end of our deep dive. We've covered an incredible amount of ground today. We've talked about having horse sense to read a room's mood, learning a little gobbledygook to sound like an insider in different industries with a nutshell resume, and even the mechanics of sending buttercups to their boss by praising people to their superiors to ensure great relationships. But when you boil down every single trick, every technique, from the 10-second visual snapshot to the sticky eyes to the anatomically correct empathizers to the tombstone game, what is the core reality here? What is the unifying theory?
The core reality, returning directly to our initial lens of loving our neighbor, is that every single one of these 92 techniques is, at its heart, a mechanism for making the other person feel seen, heard, and deeply, profoundly important. It is the practical daily application of stepping away from your own ego, silencing your own need to be the smartest person in the room, and prioritizing the emotional experience of the person standing right in front of you.
Exactly. It's moving away from that frantic, self-centered announcement of, well, here I am, look at me, validate me.
And shifting to the empathetic, connection-driven, radically generous warmth of, there you are, tell me everything.
It changes everything about how you move through the world. So as we wrap up, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to ponder based on everything we've explored today. If you're driving right now or walking your dog, I really want you to chew on this.
It's a big one.
We've learned that 80% of someone's impression of you is formed before you even speak a word. We've learned that the vast majority of your conversational success doesn't rely on your own brilliant original stories, but on your ability to accurately reflect their world back to them through echoing their vocabulary, utilizing their analogies, and matching their sensory language.
Right.
If all of that is true, if connection is truly built on mirroring the other person, how much of what you consider to be your authentic self in a social setting is actually just the skillful, empathetic reflection of the people around you? Are we ever truly rigidly ourselves in a room full of people? Or are we always, at our absolute best, just beautiful, highly attentive mirrors for others? It's something to think about the next time you walk through a doorway.